Hey, it's me, Alex. Real quick, just wanted to say if you enjoyed this video or you like it as you're watching it, just stay tuned to the end or fast forward to the end. There's a little segment, it's about a minute and a half, where I talk about 2 sessions that I have when I stream where we go over just purely studying stuff. And it's on Sundays and Wednesdays. All the information is there. So I hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you later. Anyway, all right, I'm going to get into it. So, yes, happy Sunday. My weekend was good. Thanks for asking. How was yours? I hope it was fantastic. But let's get into PIO because I know some of you are interested in this. So we'll do a quick talk about what PIO is, how it can benefit you. If you've never heard of PIO, this would be a good introduction into some of the statistical and computational programs you can use on your computer to help you get better at poker. And now this isn't a surefire thing to get you better at poker. I actually had a discussion with one of my friends last night in regards to PIO and how it is more of a tool that will help you understand more theoretical stuff as opposed to how things should be played, because what you'll see is that this is really based on what we put into the simulator. So quick overview, what we see is the tree building parameters, which is what PIO is. It is essentially what it does is much like chess. If you put in a first move, it'll calculate all the other moves that your opponent can make and what you can make after he responds to your move. It does the same thing in poker, except obviously not chess related, it's with cards. So we'll have ranges to start. So click range icon to change starting ranges, and you'll click this button. I have preset ranges in here, so I don't have to constantly, click and figure out ranges. I can just go, okay, I'm in the big blind and I'm calling a raise from the cutoff. And I'll click it and go boom, okay, cool. And then go out of position. We are out of position. I'm in the big blind, flattening a raise from the cutoff. And so that will be that. And then you put the in-position range. So in this scenario specifically, it would be cutoff, open, 6 max, and now you have your ranges. Quick note on this is when you're using PIO, when it goes to solve for a solution after you put a board in a starting pot and certain bet sizes in, it's going to base everything off of the ranges you give it. So when you're playing against a standard opponent, you can put in what is a standard range. I think this is a relatively standard cutoff opening range. It does depend obviously by the player, and that is why it is very, very important to know exactly what the ranges look like. Granted, in poker, we don't always know exactly what our opponent's ranges look like, but we have a good idea. I imagine most people probably aren't opening king 6, queen 7, 6 suited, or yeah, all these suited hands. They're probably more tight most of the time from the cutoff. I don't know. It depends on your opponent. But it really is important to know, because if I start putting in all these hands, PIO is going to assume that my opponents are going to be playing these as optimally as they can. If I believe that my opponents are not capable of playing king 5 suited and king 4 suited optimally, I should be taking them out. Because if we put these in here to calculate, it's going to give us some answers on how to play against these hands, and if we are putting these hands in that they never actually have, it's going to cause us to have a strategy that isn't entirely correct. It'll be balanced, but it won't be entirely correct because they don't have these hands. Mo, bro, my boy, what up, Mo? What up, Mo? How you doing? We gotta talk in preparation for Wednesday, yeah? That's again this week. I think it is. And we also lost an hour, so happy or not happy daylight savings time. I'm not very thrilled about it either. I don't like losing time, but that's all right. Yeah, no, Wednesday, dude. I'm with you, baby. Let's go. Coaching strength. I'm with you, buddy. Let's grind it up. How has the cash game challenge been going for you? You want a couple more buy-ins? I hope you did. So, yeah, Mo will get back to me. Let's continue. So, after we put the ranges in, what we can do is 5 stacks up, dude. Dude, that's what I'm talking about. That's like $10, which is like 1,000 rupees. That's a ton of rupees. It's probably more rupees, I don't know. After we put the ranges in, we can put in a board to get the most out of PIO. There are 2 ways to go about studying with this tool. You can just use individual hand histories, and that's honestly what I do. It's not going to be as thorough because it's just going to be giving us one instance of an outcome, but it is a good way to learn specific spots. And I think that in poker, after you play for a very long time, a lot of the stuff that you're going to be having trouble with are like specific instances that don't come up often. The other side of the coin is poker, once you get to that advanced level, is more about range dynamic as opposed to the hand that you have and how your opponent is playing his range. So when it comes to range dynamics, you really want to do things like pick low boards and practice what it looks like to be playing on a deuce 4-7 rainbow board versus these specific ranges. And then you also want to change it up and say, okay, maybe it's not 2-4-7, maybe it's 7-8-9 rainbow, and then change it to that suit and see how the ranges interact there. And then maybe do ace king jack rainbow, and then you can even get into monotone, jack 9-10 suited, 9-8-7, all these different types of textures. And this is how you're going to get the best out of PIO, is just practicing textures, going position by position, 3-bet pot by non-3-bet pot, and just studying it every single day until you start to understand how poker is how the ranges interact on certain board textures. And this is how you can get really good. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Sub, what up? Leon, how you doing? Leon, I see that Twitch Prime, bro. I see that Twitch Prime, but no sub. What's up? Just saying. Anyway, so that's how you can get really good, is you can mess around with different flop textures and see how ranges interact. And once you get a range down, and if I start to note that under the gun has a very, very powerful range advantage on jack 9-7, you can start using that to your advantage and just start betting more, because you know you have more strong hands than your opponent. And that is better than just saying, okay, I actually have top set, so I have to bet, or I have ace-7 off and I can't bet. You go by range. Reported for bullying. Lol. Get at me, bro. Get at me. But, so let's use this as an example. We'll do the 2-4-7 rainbow. We'll put in a starting pot. The video wasn't loading. Starting to see if chat worked. We're here, baby. I'm here. We're all good. So after you do that, you can mess around with starting pot. Again, everything that you input into this program will tell you it'll give you answers based on exactly what you put into it. There's no flexibility here with that. It's not going to say, okay, maybe he meant this, maybe he meant this, maybe she meant this. It's exactly what you put into it. So if I have a starting pot of $10 and I give the effective stacks to the money behind 90, it's going to know the SPR is 9-1. So that will change the outcome on how it wants me to play certain hands in my range. But now if I make the SPR 20 or 2, effective stacks if it's 2 bets behind, it's going to completely change how I were to play my range. So it's very important. Everything is very, very specific in this program. You mess something up or put something differently, you're going to have an issue. My sub ran out. Alpha, thanks for the resub, you sexy cuck. Appreciate you, bro. So yes. So we'll start with a standard, which is 9 or 10 SPR behind, single raised pot, and everything should look pretty standard in this regard. So now we come to bet sizing. Bet sizing you can change a ton. This is the most fun part in PIO, I believe, is messing around with bet sizing. You can start with small bets, third pot. You can do your standard 2 or 3/4 pot, and then you can even do things like overbetting, which is the most fun part, I think, is you can really mess around and add things to your game that you probably didn't have before, because PIO's going to say, yeah, in this certain spot you can overbet, or this certain spot on the turn out of position you can dunk for 50% or over the pot. So we can mess around with that, which we will do in this sim. And so after you put those bet sizes in, raise size is usually 3x. This has a percentage on the side, so if you wanted to put 300, you could put 300, but 3x also works for raise sizings. And I usually just hit copy over to from IP to out of position. And on the turn, we'll do the same thing. Actually, we'll just do 50 and 90. 50 and 90, and we'll just run a turn sim, because it actually takes a lot of resources when you run the full simulation. So also, as a disclaimer, you got to have a relatively strong PC, at least have enough memory or RAM to be able to run some of these simulations. It does take a ton out. I would show you that, but it's gonna might crash my computer, so I'm not gonna do that. Mo, is this all for the free version? In the free version, oh yeah, I don't know. But on the price side, it'd be an export on that single sim you run, for sure. Yeah, you can get a lot out of one. Pick like a good monotone, or a good rainbow board, like 7 Jack King. Study that. Anyway, so we can do that. You can also use rake and utilize rake simulations, which is good for micros. Honestly, guys, it's a little tedious. I don't recommend messing around with rake too much. If you do, you want to do some more toy simulations, and by toy simulations, I mean you know, a starting pot of 1 with an effective stack of 1. This is a toy sim where there's not many options. It's just kind of straightforward, yes or no. But that's for another day. We can talk about toy sim. So yeah, after we have all that stuff in, you can take a look at this other stuff. Use only 1 bet size before if there is a raise, so you can get into really specific situations and utilize this very specifically. But this is the standard. So we're going to go with the standard, and I'm going to run the sim. So first you click Build Tree. And once the tree is built, it'll say Build Tree OK. And once it says Build Tree OK, you can hit and go. Can you see that? I don't think you guys can. Fix this. Okay, so down here, you hit go. You hit go, and then it's going to run the sim. It's going to take a little bit. Up here, you can have solving accuracy. I put it down to 1% of the pot. That way, no one. So it's not a really exploitable pot. If you make it 10% of the pot, it's just not going to run the sim as long, and there's going to be more exploits in it. It's better to run it down to like 1% or like 2%. Some people go down to 0.1%, so it's very, very accurate. But I think 1% is good enough. So it's going to run the sim. Takes a little bit, so we'll give it a second. It's going to take a little bit because I put in donk sizing and overbet sizing on the flop, so it has to run those multiple trees. Take some time. While it's running, well, there you go. Now it's done. That's good. What we can do is take a look as it's running. What it's doing is taking a look at EVs. And in poker, when we talk about range advantage, it talks about what it's really speaking to is who has the higher expected value given a certain board texture and given a certain range that they're playing. We can immediately look on the right and see that the EV of the in-position player is 4 points higher than the EV of the out-of-position player. So on this certain texture, 247, in-position is going to have a massive range advantage over the out-of-position player. And that makes sense. If it's not a 3-bet pot, aka he doesn't have a range that's stronger, a 3-betting range. This is just a flat calling range. In position is going to have a lot more overpairs and just have a stronger range on a low board because the 8-high boards and under do not really hit players very often. So that's the first thing that you can note if you're just running quick sims and you just want to see, okay, who has a range advantage, and not looking into specifics on some hands. What positions were these? So in the out of position, I have big blind flatting a cutoff open, and that looks like this. Mine's a little different. I have some specific numbers put in here, so I'll use a random number generator and mix it up. Sometimes I'll 3-bet, sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll just fold. Like this 8-7 off is half call, half fold. 9-8 off is half call, half fold. But my 10-6 suit is 3/4 call, 1/4 3-bet. And same with my other suited hands. Most of my suited hands are more 3-bet than fold. And then I have in position as the cutoff open. So now we have that solver's run. So we'll go over here and click on browser, and this will bring up the tree. So the first button that I always click is this strategy and EV button. What it will do is it will highlight exactly what is up here, but show it on the hands. So this is the out of position player. We'll notice that it does and can have a small donking range for 12%, but predominantly checking. And so with PIO, you'll find a lot of split ranges. And so here you see that there are 3 split ranges. There's 4 combos that want to overbet. There's 2 combos that want to bet large, and then there's 54 combos that want to bet small. But the rest of our range is checking. And so in these situations, it's really hard for a human to remember, okay, I'm going to be betting 12 combos as an overbet, which is pocket 7s for top set, and it looks like top, ace 7, and 7-4 suited. Then there's some others in there to balance, 7-5 and jacks, I guess. I don't know why. But as a human, we cannot really remember this. It's going to be really hard to remember this specific board texture in this position if we're going to split our range up like this. So what you do as a person is you do something called, well, there's 2 ways to do it. You can do round strategies, which is, let's see, it just froze. You got to give it a sec. You go to a tree, and you click round strategies, and what you can do is you can round your strategies to multiples of 4 or multiples of 3. In this instance, I'm going to do multiples of 2 because I want it to narrow down to pretty much just bet 1/3 and check. So we'll do that, and then we have to, I think we have to rerun the sim, and I'm not going to actually do that. But what you can do is you can click on round strategies and do this flop turn river, round the strategies in the tree, and it will round it down. You have to rerun the sim, but it should round it down to pretty much just bet 3 and check. If you don't want to do that, you can just mentally work it out. I was just going to show you, but I forget you have to run it. So predominantly checking, therefore, as a human, we're going to be predominantly checking our hand. So almost a 100% check is what I would be doing in this situation. Maybe I could work on splitting my range up a little bit and betting small and leading out with all of these hands. So long as I'm consistent, this will be a balanced strategy, so says PIO. And it is interesting to note that you do want to be leading some of your 4s here. Actually, 4s are very heavy. You want to be leading your sorry, I know it's very itchy. Your weak overpairs, your 6s and 5s as a block, your 3s as a block. All these hands that don't want to call a larger bet. Because if we take a look at what imposition's doing, is they're going to be predominantly betting large. And so this is why PIO is important, because we'll learn what our opponent's strategy is most of the time and how we can try to counteract it. So if we notice that imposition is going to do a lot of betting and it's going to be a lot of over betting. The reason being is on the 7-high board, they have a massive range advantage. There's really no point in betting small. So their range is extremely split up. And again, as a human, we can't really split it up this much. I mean, this is an extremely split range, and it is going to be very, very high EV to play like this, but it's hard for us humans to break it up into 4 different categories. And so in this certain instance, I'd probably try and narrow it down and rerun this sim as bet 8, bet 12, and check, and then see if it liked betting 12 or betting 8 more between these 2 bet sizings, and then whatever one it preferred, I would use that individual. But if you want to try and memorize this is fine. There's nothing wrong with trying to figure out and remember, okay, it wants me betting small with most of what looks to be my air and my strong overs, and balance it with my aces, kings, and 10s. It wants me to overbet pretty much everything else, and then betting medium with pretty much the same range. But it likes massive overbets with top, our king 7, queen 7, our sets, 8s, 9s, and 10s, and bottom set, which is interesting. But checking with all of our weaker aces that like to show down, overbet, or betting small with our strong aces that don't really want to show down, or don't want to check and show down. So very interesting. And so yeah, you can use this and you can go through the trees. So let's say they bet 12, which is standard. They're going to be betting 12. I click on strategy and EV again. So we go back to the out of position player. We're going to be folding about 70% of our range, raising about 4%, which is just our nutted hand predominantly, and then calling with the rest. And so you can go through this whole tree. You can mess around. You can take a look at turns, what turns will do, and see different turns. And so instead of hitting the 4 of spades, you fold, Robbie. You can click 9 or whatever. And so instead of having to go through all of the different options and go, okay, not the 9 of clubs, I want to do the 10 of hearts this time, and then hitting strategy and EV, what you can do is click on analysis and go to a button called Run Out EV Comparison, aka the hotness, the hot sheet. No, I didn't pick a turn, I guess. Okay, now we picked it. And so now, once you click that button, they'll pull up this screen. And this screen is very useful for stuff at a glance. Alex, these Sunday sessions are the nuts. Thanks, bro. Capone. Anytime, brother. Anytime. I'm here to help. And I appreciate that. Thank you, dude. So we pick up the hot sheet, and what you'll see is this. It's just all the cards in the deck. And what things will look like as certain turns come off. So I picked the 10 of hearts. It doesn't matter right now. This is still looking at the turn. And so I can click on a button. We'll do EV. So we'll do out of position EV. And now this is the most interesting aspect to poker. Hold on, let me fix this. Let me make this smaller so you can see. Whoops, sorry guys. Yeah, we'll do this. All right, so this is the most interesting part of PIO, I think, and I actually just learned about this tool recently, is by hitting this button, you can see, Capone, thanks for the resub, bro. 2 months? Dude, you're family now. Thank you, welcome back. Definitely rewatch this video when you're done, because this stuff will lose your get away from your head really quickly. So this is EV for out of position. What we're looking at is how certain turn cards will affect the EV of the out of position player. This is the most important part of PIO. Reason being is instead of having to look at certain hands and how to play certain hands, we're looking at range. This is specifically just range. And we're seeing, guys, please stop. We're seeing that for the out of position player's range, the 8 through the king are terrible cards for us. Terrible. The ace is okay. The ace is good, the 3 is good, the 5 is good, and then the 2, 4, 6, and 7 are kind of split. Now, the problem with PIO, I shouldn't say the problem, but the difficult part about PIO is, okay, cool. I think it's pretty easy to understand that. I mean, red means bad, so we can assume red means bad for the out of position, green means good, but why? PIO doesn't give you the why. You have to determine what the why is, or you have to find someone that understands how to translate this into the why. So I'm going to help and do that right now. So we're seeing that the 8, 9, 10, Jack, Queen, King are bad, and let's take a look at why. So 7, 4, 2 is the starting flop, and then it's saying that all of these higher cards over the 7 are going to be bad. Now, the reason why is because the in-position player already has a range advantage. So on a low board, it would make sense that if it has a range advantage, any card coming over the 7 is just going to help the in-position range. The difference is the ace is not going to help because a lot of the stuff that the out-of-position player is going to be calling with are his ace-x gut shots or his ace-x backdoor flush draws, stuff like that. Also note, opposition player is going to have a lot of 3s, a lot of 5s that connect with his straight draws, 5, 6, 6, 3, 5, 8, stuff like that. And so all of these cards, these lower cards, are going to be better for the calling range on this board texture. And that makes sense because when we call a bet out of position on 7-4-2, we're likely to have a piece or an overpair as opposed to ace-king. Although ace-king can probably still be, well, I actually don't think it's actually in our big blind range because we flatted a cutoff open. So ace-king's not there. But we have a lot of hands that continue that will be connected with these lower cards. And so that is why these lower cards are better and the higher cards are bad. So now let's take a look at the in-position EV. This is for turn cards right now. This is just the turn. And so it's pretty much just a flip of what we just saw. But again, we can take a look and redefine and talk about why it's actually such a bad EV card as an ace, 3, and 5. And again, it's because it makes the straights. In position definitely still has some aces, but the out of position player is going to have more 2-pair now when the ace comes off. So good to note. These are things that are very, very fun to note because if you can remember that certain turn cards are bad, that's going to be bad. And so what you can do is you can now take a look at some lines. If I hit the 8 of clubs here, it's going to change this card to the 8 of clubs. If I hit the 9 of hearts, it's going to change it as well. And we can see how the betting changes. As I click, you see this? So boom, 7 changed it to betting about 20% as an overbet. Even though this has the same color, it only does it 11% with the 4. And so yeah, we can click around and wow, that's very interesting. So let's click on the ace, because I actually haven't run this. It's a very interesting spot. Try says, why using PIO Solver to analyze that? Hold on, Try. I am related to Jeff Gross. So let's get the ace real quick. And so the ace of club peels off, and it's saying, as an out-of-position player, that we do have a lead here, a very, very common lead. We don't check. When the ace peels, we do not check. We're either betting small with our 7s and maybe some of our weaker single pairs as blocks, or overbetting, because we have now a lot of 2 pairs and a lot of straights. So very interesting. And so we can take a look and see how the in-position player is supposed to react. So once we overbet, we actually get him to fold out 70% of his range on this turn. He pretty much is narrowed down to calling with his top pairs, his over pairs, and all of his aces. But just calling with all of his aces, as opposed to being able to raise with something like ace-7, because we can have 3-5. So very, very interesting. So yes, this is what you can do. It's a very, very powerful tool. So let's just say, here's the ace, and we can say bet 17 and call. And again, we can click the 4 of hearts and pick up the hot sheet again. And we'll do in position EV. And so on the 4 of hearts, in position EV is much higher. Well, sorry, not the 4 of hearts. So in position on the river is going to have a higher EV on all club runouts because the in position player, if he gets led into, will have a lot of flats that contain clubs, right? Because he's flatting a donk lead on a club, a lot of his range that's going to be flatting will be the flush draw that is brought in, but then all the overcards still over the 8 are going to be good. The king is not going to be good for the in-position player, I guess, because out of position has some more kings, and 2s are also bad for in-position because out of position definitely has more 2s in this situation. So just stuff to look at. Very interesting to note that specifically the 7 of spades is terrible for the in-position player. Not as bad as the diamond, but the 7 of spades is bad because it pairs the top card. So this is what you can use to quickly reference some flop textures and take a look and see what turn cards are bad, and maybe just click on a couple of different ones and see how the betting changes. Obviously we're checking here a lot with our range, and I also need to run a river sim, so that's why they're going to be checking 100%. But that is what you can do with this tool, and it's very, very powerful. I highly suggest you use it with every single sim that you run, because it'll give you a lot of insight onto how to use your range. And so what you can do after you run a simulation like this is review it later. I usually save this full tree. You can also save, if you're trying to just play around with PIO and play around with flop textures, what you can do is save very small tree, only flops cached, which is good because you want to, this takes up a lot of resources, so whenever you save it, so I don't know if you can actually see it, but I'm going to save it as a full tree. And this is rainbow low cutoff versus B5 flat. So I'll save it. It's caching right now. It actually took a couple of seconds to cache, but now if I want to load a tree, so I have a bunch of other ones saved, so I'm going to say turning chips on a very wet board. I'll open it. It'll take a minute, but boom, the tree is saved. I can go through it and study this texture and take a look at this hand immediately without having to run another sim. So it's good to save, and it saves you a lot of time. But if you just want to run a couple sims and see what certain ranges look like on flop textures, you can do save very small tree, only flops cache. And that is usually when you spend a day or maybe a couple hours just going through changing the flop textures and the bet sizings, and it'll just run certain positional dynamics and show you what it's like to run certain flop textures. And that's good because then you can have all the flop textures ready for whenever you want to run another sim. So that's that. This is the pre-flop PIO Solver, but when you have the full version. I'm not going to run through this, but if you ever wanted to work on your pre-flop game, you have to buy the full package. The full package is $1,000, and that allows you to work on some pre-flop stuff. I don't actually mess around with this too much, as it's kind of difficult because, I mean, one thing is figuring out someone's range. The other is trying to figure out how to add in or remove hands from your range pre-flop, which is very difficult to do, especially on Ignition where everyone's anonymous. If you were to play on something like ACR and you have a very, very solid construct of your opponent's range, this would be a very useful tool. But without it, it's kind of not that useful. It's cool to see whether or not King Queen off or Ace Jack off is going to be making you money versus certain player types if you think they're a tighter player, and it'll let you know if you should be raising or folding this pre. But other than that, it's going to be hard to use. Other than that, that's pretty much all there is to PIO. Again, I need to emphasize the fact that if you're going to be using certain ranges and certain pot sizes and bet sizings, that it's all very specific. If you were to put in something incorrectly, it's usually pretty obvious. It'll pop up like these ranges would be perfectly split. So like if I run a sim here, so if I hit build tree, oh, there's no board. If I hit build tree and don't run the sim, it's going to show everything split because I didn't run the sim. It's just going to say everything is a third, a third, a third. So make sure you run the sim. That's one thing that you can run into if you don't run it. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions on PIO and how I can use it better? Or that you can use it better, I guess. Cuties. Alpha says, does seem more useful to study by running flops in different positions and analyzing ranges than just to review big hands you play. Yeah, absolutely. I usually run these single hand situations, usually if it's like a pot that I see, I just have no idea how to play it. I think that's good, but yeah. Cappy, do you have a discount for PIO? No, I do not. I've actually reached out to the guy who created it, and I told him, dude, this is an amazing program. I wish more people knew about it, but he doesn't do affiliate stuff. He says he's already overwhelmed with the amount of sales he has, so I do not, unfortunately. Nike, you may have already answered this, but how much does this cost? The cheapest version that will run this stuff for you that I just showed you, I think is $300. So a little on the more expensive side, but definitely worth the money. This is going to make you so much more money in the long run if you use this program daily. Navin, what up, boy? You all just got here. You definitely need to add more bet sizes if you're solving that spot. For sure. For sure. I was messing around and doing some toy sims. I just put 103x and 102.7x. I was doing some toy simulations with this, and like, if I only bet pot on this board texture this deep, what's it look like? But yeah, you do. That's the other thing. That's a good point I should mention. You need to add more bet sizes in general, because if you only put in one bet size, it's going to assume that your opponent is not capable of betting other things, and that will change it. So when I put in just a bet size of 100, and I copy that and put the flop is the same, if I don't put in stuff like 33 and 50 in here, it's not going to realize that my opponent is capable of having multiple sizings on a board texture. That being said, it's going to assume that when he's betting 100, it's probably with the stronger portion of his range, and he's not going to, the PIO is not going to consider other options. It's just going to go, okay, he's betting 100%, he should only be doing it with this range, etc. Yes, this is a permanent program. Yeah. You should do a monthly thing, but it's kind of silly. You want to own this because you want to save this stuff and review it later on, for sure. Now it says the trade-off, more bet size and increased calculation size. You have to find a nice sweet spot of experiment, but in time you'll know what it generally likes and can simplify it. Yes. 30, 70, 100. Yeah, third pot, three-quarter pot, full pot, and overbet, for sure. Navin, I knew you used it, you motherfucker. I knew you did. As soon as I saw your stuff, I'm like, this kid's PIOing for sure. Yeah, if you get pro, you get 2 activations. That's what my friend did. He gave me his free version. But very, very useful tool, and it's what I use to study all the time. I'll just mark some hands and run it, and then I'll probably mess around with the same ranges that I'm using whatever hand I had. So like, sorry, I played some tournaments last night. But let's say I had this specific hand, right? And I ended up raising under the gun and I get called by the button. And I'll run this sim specifically to see how my 8-7 suited was played, but then I can also take a look at how I should play my Jack-10 off, or my Jack-10 suited, or my Ace-Jack, or my pocket threes. And so we can take a look at range play on certain boards like this. Gotta be careful not to get drunk in the PIO Kool-Aid. It is such a Kool-Aid, isn't it? It's like, oh man, well PIO. I actually said it to my friend yesterday. I was like, so what do you think you would do with King Jack of clubs on like King 10-4 with 2 clubs? He's like, I don't know, just call. And I was like, well, you actually should be raising. He's like, you can't tell me I should actually be raising because PIO told you. He's like, there's so many other factors. There's like stack sizes and bet sizings. Yeah. So yeah, it's something that you can get really lost in, which is what I tried to disclaim at the beginning, is you have to be very specific and be careful with this stuff because it's telling you only what you put into it. So if you're putting stuff in and you're missing other components, such as your opponent is capable of overbet jamming, or your opponent is capable of donk leading for 25% pot, it's not going to realize that. And so you're going to have an ineffective strategy versus an opponent when you're missing that information in PIO. So you really just want to use this for more of the standard stuff, or maybe against a specific opponent and you're trying to exploit them and remain balanced in the sense. But just remember that when you're putting stuff in, that this is not going to be a perfect science. It is running simulations that are a perfect science and they're going to help you balance, but remember to look at it as more of an overall range thing, as opposed to specifically in this instance I'm supposed to bet 55% small. You know, just look at it as like a range thing predominantly. What's that noise? That's my fridge. So weird. But other than that, guys, that's all I really had to show you on PIO. I do like to keep these study sessions kind of short because there's really not much involved. Most of the work is going to be on your end of things as opposed to me showing you how to do it. So if there are any other questions, let me know now and I'll answer them. Also, if you're not a sub and you want to take a look at what we did talk about because you're just tuning in, or you just want to know more about PIO and rewatch this video, make sure to sub and you'll get access to it. I'll probably download this one and put it on the Discord channel as well. but very, very powerful tool. Not a lot of people use it. It's important though. It'll help. It'll save you a lot of time if you're doing combinatorics by hand, which I don't think many people do anymore. But there are books you can buy to practice combinatorics, but with this program you really don't need to, because it lets you know all the combos. You'll still have to remember how many combos that you'll have and what your range looks like pre-flop and how many combos total you have in your range, and then you can utilize the combos they give you here. But yeah, it's a lot faster than doing the combinatorics by hand for sure. 30% bet size is so close to EV to checking. It's more of I use PIO Solver. Bitch, get at me. No, it's good strat to down bet. You know it is. But yeah, 30% itself is not like the best. Like you can go as small. Like they're saying on certain boards, I've been like practicing more. Like you want to, honestly guys, if you like, the whole point of down betting or betting small is because you're betting your range, and if you have a stronger range, you don't need to bet large to push or make the person fold. And so technically you could try to go even smaller and go like 20% or maybe even 15% and see if PIO's like, yeah, this is a good strategy. You can bet this small on king 3 because your opponent doesn't have enough kings in his range or something like that. But good questions. Good questions, Navin. Always good, dude. Navin, you remind me of my friend Depolarizing, who will come into this chat sometimes and say things exactly like you. Like, it's like this, it's like this. No, do it like this. I love it. Eric, what up, bruh? Oh yeah, get the GP in there, baby. That's what I'm talking about. All right, you convinced me to bet 1BB. You can. It's not a terrible strategy. It's hard. Like, usually it just causes people to spaz out when you bet small. A lot of the players that I play with in 100 now, I don't know if you see it too, Navin, but people spaz out to the smaller bet sizing because they're just not accustomed to it. And it's good and bad, right? It's really good when we're down betting with a hand, but then it's really tough to play some of our weaker hands when we're down betting because they might have just spazzed. But again, as a balanced strategy, you can just fold to a spaz. I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know either. But cool. Good comments. Good use of the GP emoticon, whatever. Yes. Okay, cool. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you guys for coming out. Like Mo is saying in chat, Wednesday, I have more micro stakes coaching with him. We're going to do it live on stream. It'll be about 2 hours on Wednesday, every other Wednesday. So come out and watch that if you're still playing in the micros and you want to move out. We're just going to talk about some pretty general concepts regarding micros and how to beat it. And so that will start at 2? Right, Mo? 2 p.m. CST? I think so. I think 2 p.m. CST. If not, and no further questions, thank you for coming out. If you do have questions, feel free to whisper me or send me a message on my socials and I'll get back to you. Other than that, thanks again for coming out. If you haven't subbed, make sure to sub. I will be back. Yeah, it is 2 p.m. CST. Cool. 2 p.m. CST. I will be back streaming on Tuesday. I'll probably get into stream tomorrow because I do want to change my schedule, so keep on the lookout for that. If not, I will see you definitely on Tuesday for more 100 NL cash games, and we are going to crush. We will get it. We will get that 10K bankroll challenge done. Hopefully, not by the end of this month. Hopefully by the end of next month. That'd be the plan. But all right, cool. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Go buy PIO if you don't have it already. Run some PIO sims. If you do have it, definitely do it every day. I try to do it every day for at least an hour. And yeah, enjoy the day. I'll see you guys on tomorrow, Tuesday or Wednesday. And I'll talk to you later. Keep it gross, boys. So I hope you liked that video. If you did, make sure to please like, subscribe, and even share this with some friends that might be interested in the more mathematical side of poker as opposed to just playing cards all the time. It is some interesting stuff. Also, before I go, I just want to mention that there are 2 stream sessions where I do stuff like this all the time. On Sundays, every Sunday, I have a session review where I go over a new topic in poker, whether it be c-betting, PIO Solver, whatever. And to get the topic ideas, I have a Discord that you can also join, and I will post it in the description where you can come and ask me to do some topics on Sundays and then ask questions when I do them. And the second thing is, every other Wednesday, I have a micro stakes coaching session where I have one of my friends, students, Mo, and I coach him playing the micro stakes. Right now he's at 2-L, and so if you're playing poker live or you're playing micro stakes online, definitely come check it out, hang out, ask some questions. We can all try and learn a little bit more together. So I hope to see you there, and I'll talk to you later.